Good evening, everyone. Welcome back then to another LFM stream here for round number 5 of the Case King Pro Series here in Season 16. What a fantastic round we had last week at Donington Park with a tremendous showdown, a fantastic series of mixtures of weathers, gave us all sorts of crazy action to enjoy. And in the end, it was Tinko van der Velde, the champion from a few seasons ago, the young Dutchman, the master, rise to the occasion, rise to the top step of the podium and deliver an incredible race-winning performance for the 4th round of the season. But those drivers that took on Donington Park may have thought they had their work cut out for them there, but heading to Spa-Francorchamps for the 5th round of the season, this is certainly a daunting task for drivers to take on. It is up there with the likes of Bathurst, the Nordschleife as well, in terms of the magnitude of how tricky of a track it can be to negotiate, because it has quite the quite a unique series of characteristics, whether you look at it from the perspective of weather. We have very mixed conditions often here at a track like this. It also presents a range of very tricky cornering scenarios, straight line scenarios that you have to get your car set up and dialed in for, and as a driver that you have to be comfortable with, because when we get into the highest level of competition and racing like we have here in the Case King Pro Series week in, week out, you need to be confident behind the wheel of the piece of machinery that you are wielding. And as we have made our way a third all the way through the season so far, things are heating up in terms of those championship contentions. Of course, Amedeo Castorino, the champion from season 14, having a very stellar, consistent season so far. 3 P2 finishes and a win to his tally. So maintaining that form of consistency that we saw from him. He may have changed car, but he certainly hasn't changed form since we last saw him previously in that championship winning season. And of course, in terms of other drivers out there, you got Sam Gaskell, very impressive and consistent once again. Dario Amelo at the point end of field. Tinko van der Velde taking the win last week, bringing his overall competitiveness up across the campaign so far into a better state. And for those that are new to the world of the Case King Pro Series, there is, of course, 2 drop rounds across the 12-round calendar. So drivers that have maybe not had the most optimal start of the season so far still have opportunities to bounce back from those aspects of form and give themselves a fighting chance in terms of championship. Now, for the likes of George Boothby, the reigning champ, who has had one of those drop rounds already due to a no-show, the trickiness of that is the fact that you can't afford to really have much more in the way of bad races later on in the season. So that doesn't take you out of competitiveness straight away, but it can certainly have an impact on what wiggle room, how many mistakes can be made, how many bad days in the office can you have further down the line. So I have to see how the drivers deal with all of that. Of course, 4 different winners of the season so far. We had 12 different winners, unbelievably, across last season. We'll have to see if we can keep the streak going. How long can we keep it going before we'll have a repeat winner over the course of a season? We shall have to wait and see. Big thank you, though, once again, for all of the amazing support here on the channel. Also, Barricade for the subscription as well. Those that have subscribed here on the Twitch channel, it means so much, and it does help out the hidden heroes that make all of this possible and makes the show go on and ever greater. And of course, as rightly pointed out in the chat as well, 200,000 of you now in the LFM community. Absolutely ridiculous numbers, and so welcome and so happy to have all of you all here to share this little niche hobby of ours that brings us such joy, sometimes drama, sometimes frustration, depending on how your day is going behind the wheel of these GT3 cars, but ultimately a fantastic experience, and thank you ever so much. This community continues to get bigger, greater, and stronger than ever before, and just happy to have all of you here, and to get stuck into another evening of incredible action in the Case King Pro Series, because, say at Spa, we've tended to have some pretty interesting races. Of course, last season, when we were here, Justin Stubenrauch took his maiden victory in the Pro Series, a mighty showdown in the final few laps, and then it all kicked off down at the bus stop chicane. A mistake from Nicholas Huben allowed the opportunity for the German driver to progress his way on by and then ultimately steal the win in the final moments. The 60 minutes of action here tonight, I'm sure, is going to be delivering the goods once again. We'll make our way over to qualifying in just a brief moment and see how our drivers are getting on at trying to set the best lap time they can to form the grid tonight. Of course, 15 minutes only available on the clock for them to get dialed in, sort themselves out around this tricky task of a circuit and see how the boppers played out for the evening, of course, because, as I was saying earlier, the strengths that you need both as a driver and as a platform for your car around here does leave some ambiguity to start with as who's going to be strong. We kind of detected that somewhat when we were talking to our podium finishers from last week, Tinko van der Velde and the McLaren. Confident that he should be able to have decent straight line speed around here. He can get away with running pretty low wing on that McLaren, very downforce efficient. And then you've got the Mustang's brute force torque up the hill, up the Kemmel Straight, up, and they will be very quick as well. Nissan GT-R Amadeo was uncertain as to how that car may play out. It should be punchy out of La Source, for example, so a good car to either progress through the field or defend with, but how will it deal with that middle sector? It's maybe not the most advanced piece of machinery across the grid, so we will have to wait and see how all of our drivers get on that front. But we'll make our way over to qualifying as the drivers just coming round for their initial outlaps of the session. George Boothby, of course, the reigning champion of the Case King Pro Series, has also enjoyed plenty of success here at Spa as well. And he'll be looking to do so once again to be the first car around the circuit to see how our drivers are going to be getting on. Welcome on in, everybody. Buckle up, because it is going to be a fantastic evening of action. We'll go for the very first lap on board with the reigning champ in the number one car. Of course, number one man on the LFM platform as well. He'll make his way out of the bus stop to send us around the opening part qualifying. Of course, less time and opportunity to get laps in today than you would see other tracks. Long lap around here, hard braking in towards La Source, but the important part is all about the exit. Dip the car into that little bit of the groove on the inside of the apex. Get the power down as early as you can, and then in the case of George Boothby, you let the V8 in the bonnet of this Mustang absolutely roar into life through Eau Rouge, over the crest of Radion, beautifully coordinated through there, can go flat out in these cars as he makes his way down the back straight. See what he can achieve, 275 kilometers an hour before being hard on the brakes, using all of the curb on the left-hand side and on the apex through the Lecon chicane, and then tucked himself over to the left-hand side of the circuit to really open out the right-hander mount. Be careful not to invalidate the lap through the grass on the AstroTurf on the exit there. Now the long right-hander of turn 8. Double apex approach then for George Boothby. You can take it a little bit like Luffield at Silverstone and now really open out this fast left-hander. Was once no name, I believe it might be Jackie It's corner now. I can't quite remember. So we now head in towards Corn, of course. Fantastic long left-hander, opening up the speed down the hill, using all the track width that George Boothby can get away with, and now in towards Piff Paff. Fantastic flow through this section, looking very quickly. Bite you back, and there we go, confirmation from Brando. Warm welcome to you, and of course all of the Visceral Esports team in the chat, as then we see George Boothby setting up another very hypercritical exit through campus, through 15. Be careful not to run out too far wide, and I think backing out of the lap then. Yep, in actual fact, well, giving a handy little tow to, I believe, it is Philip Manut. No, it's not Philip Manut. Who is it in the Aston Martin making their way on by? It's one of the LFM branded asses. We'll have to see who it is on time sheet. Not quite sure who it is. But George Boothby giving a handy little tow to the Aston and made his way flying up the hill. We'll see what the lap times are as drivers make their way through the bus stop chicane. And it was Aidan Walsingham. There we go then. Who is... Oh, well, curious. No wonder I didn't quite understand who it was. We seem to have an LFM-style livery on the car from Veloce Esports. Team, I don't know anymore. Well, anyway, Walsingham was the first one to set lap time, but he wasn't top of the timing sheets for very long, as it is Eric Delfanta that has crossed the line so far. 2:15.8 in that car. The Honda going well around here. That'd be good news as well for Jardier. I did see, I think, in the title or announcement of his stream, he's a little bit nervous about how this car may behave around here. Very likely the trickiness of Eau Rouge. It can sometimes, if you've got a car that's a little bit sensitive to high-speed dynamic loading, gets a bit of a pendulum effect through that sort of sequence can put you into a bit of a tricky moment, this car, and very quickly will bite you back. So it at least has some confidence seeing that car make its way towards the pointy end of the field for the time being, and improvements coming in already from Del Fanta. 2/10 up purple over the course of the first sector. We've got Luke Whitehead, the number 2 car in the server. The Mercedes AMG also looking pretty handy around here at the moment. Into the 0.9s immediately, along with Kevin Tadai and Tinko van der Velde. Then Sam Gaskell sitting just 2,000ths beyond that 2:16 barrier. But I'm sure as the track rubbers in, we'll see those lap times continue to come down over the course of the session. Whitehead, fantastic run through Pawn, and Piff-Paff has gained a lot in this middle sector, but Eric Del Fanta is also looking very quick. So right now in this session, these two looking like the drivers to beat, but there are a number of improvements coming from further down the field. You can see our top 10 there. Bearing in mind how long this lap is, covered by barely 0.2 of a second. Fantastic margins here in the Case King Pro Series as always. Luke not getting the best exits up the hill, losing a bit towards his delta, whilst Eric Del Fanta continues to improve and find lap time. We'll see what it is for Luke Whitehead. He would need a good run through the bus stop. He's gone a little bit deep on the entry there. He'll lose time on the exit, carrying good overall speed though. Sam Gaskell carried a huge amount of speed on the entry there. We'll see. George Boothby goes to the top of time sheets for a moment. Luke Whitehead improves. Not enough for provisional pole. Gaskell improves, but Del Fanta goes on to a 5.82 and then goes up to the top of time sheets by a 1/10 of a second. But Dario Iamolo currently absolutely flying on the timing sheets. And look at that for a lap time. The Audi R8 once again into the mid-15s. And Dario Iamolo, who has consistently been showing that this car is the only R8 really at the pointy end of the field. Oh, there's a big lap time on the way. There's a very big lap time on the way from the current championship leader. And Castorino does a 0.472 in the Nissan GTR. He's already taken pole positions over the course of this season. He's so well-rounded as a driver. Fantastic over the course of one lap. Great consistency, calmness under pressure as well. And that is what consistently is keeping him in these fights for race wins, which is what he needs to do if he wants to add a second Case King Pro Series title to his name. And right now he is getting the slipstream of all slipstreams. The Lamborghini in front of him. Can't quite see who that was. I think it was number 25 car, perhaps. As they fly on through, and that has allowed Amedeo Castorino to gain a full 1/10 of a second in the opening sector alone. And that's sometimes a bit of pressure into the braking zone, because you know then you're going to have to be a bit more conservative to not then have too much overspeed in towards the corner. But so far, so good for the Italian driver. George Boothby also finding a 1/10 of a second as well. But fantastic stuff. Who would have thought a couple of seasons ago that right now your top 3 in qualifying, in dry qualifying that is, that your order would be Nissan GTR, Audi R8 and Honda. It's a funny world we now find ourselves in ACC, but it's a very much welcomed one as well. Fantastic to have such great dynamic with the manufacturers. We've got an Aston Martin up there now in the form, the Bentley of Niklas Huben. Of course, another car that's come back to competitive form. George Boothby in the Mustang goes up in towards the front row. That could be important for the championship fight. We've got a McLaren up there and Aston Martin. Sam Gaskell brings another Mustang to the party as well. Luke Whitehead just a 1/4 of a second behind. We're down to P9. Already Leon Burnt in the 296 as well finds his way in towards the top 10. We've got an improvement coming in from Michael Frey in the Porsche. Has had a good tow up the hill, perhaps maybe a little bit awkward into bus stop chicane. Might lose a touch of time, but he should be just about okay as he crosses the line in towards P10. He goes. Fantastic effort there from the Swiss driver. Has been impressive in qualifying trim from time to time. Hasn't always managed to hook it all together. As I think it might have been, it was number 28 Lamborghini of Kevin Tadai, I think, was giving that tow to his fellow countryman Castorino in the Nissan GTR. In the end, Castorino wasn't able to utilise it, though, to improve further on his lap time. So the benchmark then, with 5 minutes left on the clock, still a 4.72 from Amedeo, ahead of George Boothby and Dario Iamolo to make up your top 3. fantastic stuff so far in this qualifying session. With 5 minutes left on the clock, I want to hear your bets in the chat. Who do we think pole position is going to be heading towards? Will it go towards the likes of Tinko van der Velde? He is back out on a lap. And so is Philip Menard at the moment. It seems to be registering as a valid lap. It does currently say, though, that he's 0.6 of a second up. Now, Philip Menard is very, very... I mean, I've noticed the same delta. Now, this is either the lap of all laps currently coming out of Philip Menard and this Aston Martin, or we have sometimes had some moments with delta. That delta is coming down, so it may very well be a live delta. It's a big time if it is the case from Philip Menard. We'll see what the number 9 machine delivers as he makes his way through Blanchimont. Of course, flat out in these GT3 cars. Bravery needed nonetheless in towards the bus stop chicane. He will look to go. Tinko van der Velde continuing to find time as well. And yeah, Philip Menard backs out that lap time. So I'm pretty sure, I did see somewhere else on the lap, but I think he was up by 1.6 seconds. I did have a feeling that there was probably a corner cut in there somewhere. And there wasn't quite the magnitude of lap that we were otherwise expecting. George Boothby just heading out for a time as well. Tinko van der Velde, a little bit back and forth on his delta. Last week's race winner, delivering again strong performance. Should be a good car to race with, this McLaren as well. See what he can do. That middle sector should be good hunting ground. Very stable platform through there. Picks up the power nicely as well. Timo Karppinen just outside of the top 10 at the moment, but finding a 1/10 of a second. That will see him shoot up all the way towards the top 6 if he does hook this one up. So we'll see what that Visual Esports liveried Bentley can deliver. Luke Whitehead starting up a lap as well. So lots of times on their way to see what these drivers can deliver. Amadeo Castorino has emerged from the pits, ready to embark on his final few laps of qualifying. Tinko going for another lap as well. So Ramone is starting one. Michael Sharda on his way round, making his way up through the hill. It stands at the moment. That Honda VTEC power blasts its way on by. Sharp's had some very strong performances from time to time. He's looking like he's extracting some good pace out of this car as well. Finding 3/10 as it stands. Very, very close in the midfield. 1/10 of a second covering anything up to 10 positions at the moment. So every 1,000th that you can find on these laps could be pivotal. Of course, we've had some pretty hefty shunts through Eau Rouge on the opening laps as well. So depending on where you find yourself in the order at the beginning of the race, can have a pretty large impact in more ways than one as to how your race plays out. Marco goes into a 16.1, good enough for 22nd position. We've also got Eric Gessel and Felix Tanvinza Hackerper down the order, finding some lap time. Let's see though some of these other drivers at the pointy end of the grid. A lot of cars fairly even on their delta. Eric Del Fanta finding some good time as well. It's all going to come down to how well you hook up that exit out the hill. You can very quickly gain and lose a tremendous amount of time through their pivotal corners. These GT3 cars, they don't always give you the greatest amount of time to think about that. Great run out of La Source for George Boothby at the beginning of the lap. Happy territory for the Mustang. Of course, he uses all of that torque to his advantage. Iemelo, very aggressive in towards the final chicane. Too aggressive, backs out of that one. Will go for another lap. We'll continue to monitor Tinko's progress around. He will have enough time to just about go for one more lap after this one is completed. So of course, drivers, as long as they have started their lap before that checkered flag in the session waves, they do have enough time and opportunity for one more. We've also got Karppinen in P13 at the moment. He's found a couple of 10ths of a second. That would be towards the top 5. George Boothby still going purple on his lap. Tinko van der Velde then making his way out of the chicane. A little bit wide on the exit there. I'm not sure it's going to be good enough for an improvement. It's not, just by 300ths of a second. What about Timo? Going back and forth briefly for a second, showing up as purple, although I think he may have just invalidated that lap. I've got grey on my monitor there, which doesn't necessarily indicate that lap has been valid to the end. What can the other Bentley do in the hands of Nicholas Huben. He's aggressive towards the line, but unable to improve his position. Does 8.617 in the end. Timo Karpnen, his checker flag in actual fact has already waved, so I think that is his session over and done with. What about Sam Gaskell in the next of the Mustangs? Iemolo also improving. Castorino's in the pits. The benchmark of that 472 right now is not going to change, but it could still definitely shuffle around because halfway around the lap, the R8 is seemingly moving quickly. What can Gaskell do? What can Philip Menard do, actually, out of the bus stop chicane? The number 9 car currently sitting in P9. Will he improve his position at the end of qualifying? Not quite in the end. What about Gaskell in the Mustang? Makes his way out the final apex, foot to the floor, V8 roaring its way towards the line. Can Gaskell do anything about the front row? He can't. George Boothby has backed out his final lap as well, so no further improvement for the reigning champion. What about Iemolo? We saw how much time he tried to gain in the braking zone in towards the bus stop last time around. How does he fare? This time the Audi can sometimes be a bit of a death trap. That looked very neat and tidy. It's a good exit. Oh, lost a bit of time. Foot to the floor. Back of the car broke loose. Luke Whitehead finding a 10th. Not going to find any improvement. No, he does 2 positions in the end for Luke Whitehead. Makes his way up to P8. Philip Menard unable to do anything. Michael Frey unable to improve as well. And I think, with all that said and done, unless Eric Delfanta finds something special in the bus stop chicane, he's pretty much even with his Delta as it stands. He's the only car left, realistically, that can do something about the man that's topped the timing sheets. It wasn't the best run through the first couple of apexes. Justin Stubenrauch is actually finding some time. Of course, the man that won here in season 15, not a good enough time for Delfanta to improve, neither for Stubenrauch. And so by the looks of it then, for a man that wasn't all too confident how the Nissan GTR was going to perform around here, it seems to have performed just fine for Amadeo Castorino, who makes it another pole position, but he is joined brilliantly by the reigning champion, the 2 champions of the last 2 seasons, and arguably your main championship contenders, and certainly the drivers that you'd be likely to be putting your money on if you were to have a guess as to who could be taking the crown, and who could be taking a second crown at the end of this season of the Pro Series. They make up the front row, and I think the run down towards Les Combes for the first time is going to be very, very interesting. Of course, here at Spa, even though the first turn is into La Source due to the length of the field and the rolling starts in GT3 racing, we, of course, will then start on the entry towards Eau Rouge, have that drag race towards Les Combes, and we'll see who is leading at the end of the first lap. 6 different manufacturers inside the top 6. Well, if that doesn't say that the job of the custom LFM VOP hasn't been done well, I don't know what does. And of course, that is not just a big, big thank you to all of those and the LFM team that put in so much hard work and effort to do that, but also to you as a community for putting in all of those hard-driven laps to bring all of those cars into such competitive spirit. So fantastic effort all round, and it puts us in a great position to have a fantastic evening of racing action. If you have enjoyed that qualifying session so far and you are excited to see how these drivers get on over the course of the next 60 minutes, do consider giving the channel a follow. We are not a million miles away now from 4,200 followers here on the LFM Twitch channel, as which is just absolutely extraordinary numbers. So a big thank you to those that supported already, and a warm welcome to each and every single one of you as we continue to embark on this incredible championship, which delivers just brilliant racing week in, week out. And I get the funny feeling over the course of this next 60 minutes, we are going to have the same once again. But Amadeo Castorino then making it another pole position to his ever-growing tally, and the championship leader starting in exactly the position that he would have wanted to. But the only difference at this time is he's got a little bit of a spooky set of headlights will be filling up his rearview mirrors in the opening couple of laps, or maybe even the opening straight. George Boothby on the front row with Iemolo, another impressive performance. He lines up P3 in the Audi R8. Eric Delfanta, watch out for that Honda down the Kemmel Straight as well, likely to be quick in a straight line, could do something special on the way down to Les Combes with the double slipstream. Nicholas Huben will line up behind him with Justin Stubenrauch completing the third row of the grid. Sam Gaskell in the next of the Mustangs in the number 3 Visceral Esports car. Another impressive performance from him once again, with Luke Whitehead sitting P8 in the Mercedes, a track that certainly would have been looking forward to. Be excited to see what he can do in that car. Could be a tricky one to maybe make its way through the field. Not sure whether straight line speed will line up for that car. Tico van der Velde, last week's race winner, inside of the top 10, alongside with Philip Menard and then Michael Frey in the end, just being nudged out in the last moments for the Swiss driver in the lead of the Porsche 992s. Leon Berndt in the first of the Ferrari 296s. Good stuff from the German driver once again. He'll be joined behind by Fabrizio Campanella in the next of those Visceral Esports cars, and then Timu Carpenter, so teammates, excuse me, make up the 7th row of the grid then for the Visceral Esports team. Jacques Olivier, the Frenchman, starting in 15th position next to the Aston Martins, with Tanvin Zahaka for Williams Esports bumping his way up the order in the final moments of that qualifying session in the Bentley, with Kevin Tadai sitting in P17. Once a showdown we had with him and Castorino Massano a couple of weeks ago, certainly a battle for the ages, where George Boothby was able to capitalise on the drama and surge his way towards the front in the end. Valentin Barrier and Aidan Walsingham will make up the next couple of positions, with Volker Reinders, the next of the LFM cars. He starts in 20th position, with Sasha Vassar as the Bentley roars its way into life, gets underway, and he'll be joined alongside by the next and the last of that little trio of LFM liveried cars. Luke Schneckenberger in the Mustang. Marco Schada in the next of the Hondas. He will start in 23rd position, with Axel Ramanay in the Ferrari 296 for BF Racing. The number 19 car starts in 24th place, ahead of Jardier in the next of the Hondas. Maybe would have wanted to be a little bit further up the order, but we know how well he can execute races and how he can progress through a field. We do have, of course, the Jardier Trophy inside the Case-Kid Pro Series. A little bit of a fictitious and fun pride-based medal for the most part of who can make the most progress through the field, as Jardier so often has been the winner of that statistic. So we'll see how he gets on. Vincent Proel, Martin Lawrence, Eric Gessel, Samir Foch, and then Oystein Brennan for West Competition Racing will make up those at the end of the top 30. And then Thomas Morant will start in 31st position, with then your last two cars in the field. Peter Duvela in the number 14 McLaren, and last but certainly not least, Josef Koifel in the number 31 car, starts in P33. And that then is your grid for the evening, as drivers continue their way around the formation lap. And of course, yes, absolutely do not forget the subscribers. Big thank you to all of those. And if you do want to show some extra support to the channel, then of course do feel free to do so and subscribe here. It does make oh so much of a difference. And when will it start? Very, very imminently, as patience will be a virtue here, because the racing action goodness we are going to get from Spa-Francorchamps is going to be absolutely mega, I have no doubt, because we have a lineup, a very critical lineup of the ages at the pointy end of this field. Castorino and George Boothby, your two main championship rivals, you would have to argue, but they've also got the likes of Iemolo, Del Fanta. Huben has been a championship contender all the way to season finales on multiple occasions. Luke Whitehead, of course, a two-time Pro Series champion. There's a lot of glamour inside that top six, a lot of decorated drivers in those parts of the field. So Castorino, whilst acceleration initially in towards Eau Rouge should be handy in that GTR, it's a long run towards Lake Om. There are several drivers in some pretty handy cars in a straight line that will be charging up behind him. So have to see how he copes with that pressure. But of course, if anyone can deliver that side of things, Amadeo is one of the very best to do so. Always able to keep a cool head, even at Donington Park, where it looked like it could have been an absolute disaster of a race. He got his head down, got on with it, and in the end was able to bounce back to a very good result in the end, despite the setbacks that he received. Thankfully, no collisions of the formation lap. Although that doesn't mean to say that we haven't had some moments actually here at Spa with some collisions that caused not just damage to cars inside the server, but also injury. And it unfortunately actually fell to your reigning champion, George Boothby, right around here. Whereas one of his teammates at the time, I won't name names, as everyone starts to try to get themselves into position, unfortunately had a slight miscalculation over where George's car was in the field during the initial out of qualifying. Absolutely steamrolled into the back of him at about 140 miles an hour, and the powerful direct drive motors that a lot of these guys use on their sim rigs gave a pretty nasty whip to the hands of the reigning champ. And I believe he ended up either with a fracture, a fractured thumb or something. But yeah, certainly certainly for sim racing was one of the more physically dangerous moments we've had here at the Pro Series. But fingers crossed, we should be okay. But wait and see. There's always drama and action and goodness here in the Pro Series, and it is always delivered every bit of extraordinary action that you can imagine. So we'll have to see what it does for this evening. But 60 minutes of a race here in the 5th round of the season is about to get underway. Who is going to be crowned at the top of the step podium here at Spa-Francorchamps after 6 minutes of action? We're about to find out. Green lights away then. It's a good start from Castorino. It's also a very good start from Del Fanta on the second row of the grid. Already a wheel bump between him and Iemolo through a Rouge around. It's getting busy already. That was one of the Aston Martins. I think that was Stewart Rout that had to go very far wide, but the drag race now begins. We get a face full of tree for a moment, but then we can see George Boothby hot pursuing. Look at it all kicking off further down the order. George Boothby has found a gap towards the inside line. Will he go for it? Castorino is super late on the brakes. Oh, big crash further behind, and several cars sent around. There's Hooban around. Iemolo's around as well. Absolute disarray further down the order as they make their way on through the right-hand mountain. There's more chaos out there. It's Kevin Tadai that's gone around. Excuse me, it's Campanella that's gone around. And I said the drama can kick off immediately in the Pro Series, and it's done exactly that. And that is massive, massive complications for several cars. Campanella, Kevin Tadai, Iemolo, hefty damage on the front, and that could be a retirement immediately. Hooban was involved in that as well. And that was several important cars at the pointy end of the field caught into conflict immediately. They kept it clean in the opening couple of cars, but I'm not sure quite how the contact evolved. Let's see what the stewards say about that. All I saw was a flash of what I thought might have been a black Aston Martin, which I think could have been Justin Stewart. How is the front end of that car looking? It was looking fairly tidy, so maybe it wasn't that car. I'm not quite sure, but someone went spearing across the apex in towards Lake On, and then it all absolutely tumbled from that point onwards. So big drama and incidents at the opening lap of the 5th round of the season. Now this is why you can never count on anything here in the Pro Series. In actual fact, Ingo van der Velde, why might have been a benefactor of the opening part of that lap, could be coming under pressure very quickly from Philomena, who's going super late on the brakes all the way around the outside. Surely cannot make that one stick, and that is Tinko trying to hold it around the outside, sent onto the grass, and the Aston Martin does go on through. So Philomena aggressive on the opening part of this lap, up 4 positions now in the Aston Martin. The champion, though, from a few seasons ago, will immediately reapply the pressure. He's got to be careful with Stewart Rout just behind. Can't hold it around the outside immediately. In actual fact, has now got the complication of the other Aston Martin going side by side in towards Eau Rouge. Will they go single file on the entry? They do in the end. Oh, there's a little bit of contact. There was contact. Tinko van der Velde. How did he manage to hold on to that? I do not know, but a huge scare for the McLaren. He just about keeps it all together, and Stewart Rout, I think, trying to back out of that one, has had to lift. Michael Frey now on the charge in the Porsche. We know how aggressive he can be in wheel-to-wheel combat. He'll try to go for the over and under. He might even make it stick here, trying to go all the way around the outside in towards Lake On into Malmedy, but it's cut off by the German driver. Feisty stuff, elbows out here in the opening couple laps here at Spa, and I said it could be a chaotic one, and I'm glad that these guys have once again lived up to expectation. This is what we know the Cage King Pro Series always delivers, but Castorino making an important breakaway out the front of the field, half second clear of anybody else. George Boothby and Eric Del Fanta trying to maintain the pursuit, but the Nissan GTR right now looking very strong. So is Luke Whitehead in the Mercedes, up 3 positions himself. Of course, a lot of drivers benefiting from what I think was Stuben Rauch, Huben and Iemelo losing out on the opening part of the race then. And it has been a couple of retirements. Those are Rangers and Iemelo in the early stages of the race. So unfortunate stuff for them. We'll keep an eye. What Stewart's have to say, wide moment then for Sam Gaskell, and that could be pressure for the Mustang. Oh wait, no, it's Mustang, so it just pull away, and they'll use all the ponies to escape from the Mercedes on down towards bus stop chicane. But you don't have to give Luke Whitehead too many stiffs of opportunity before he will be sending one from very far away. Look how late on the brakes the two-time Pro Series champ is. Spot on the apex of the first part of the circuit as well. Castorino, though, sets the fast lap of the race. Not by an insignificant margin either, side by side as well. Further down the order, getting very, very busy. We'll go on board with Aidan Walsingham, who has a fantastic view of all the action kicking off as Valentine Barrier, trying to close him off towards the left-hand side of the circuit. Keep an eye on Leon Burns in the background if you can. You have to need about 5 sets of eyes to keep an eye on all of these guys. These two, side by side, as now they run up the hill. You can see Carpenter under pressure now from Olivier and Barrier, and then it's Walsingham followed by Leon Burns. I don't think the Ferrari is going to have the legs down at the back straight to really do much about these cars ahead, but Carpenter does look like he's under pressure now. He's in trouble, and he is actually being pump drafted from the Frenchman. Does Olivier still look to go on the attack? In the end, he does not. May have to defend from his countryman behind in the form of Valentine, but in the end, things stay as they were. Maybe not for these two further behind. Now it's Tanvin the Hacker versus Proel, and it is the Bentley driver that comes out on top there. Jardier also making up the rear end of that pack. I think he's gained 4 positions on the opening couple of laps of this race, but chaos and drama here in the Pro Series. And there's also scraps further down the order. Fantastic, as always, to see that no matter where in the field you look, there is drama and action. Here we go, side by side through Jackie X corner. That is Dubila versus Thomas Morant. I'm not sure the McLaren's going to be able to hold this one in towards Braun. The inside line for the Mustang gets the job done, although it's a beautiful switchback from the McLaren driver. They will continue to be side by side here as they run on down the hill in towards pit path. They will go. Now the Mustang back on the inside line, but sweeps around the outside is the number 14 car. He gets the job done. He keeps the position for the time being, but that Mustang surely up the hill is going to be an absolute menace, and they've got Kevin Tadai just behind them, who I'm sure with those opening laps going to be frustrated in that Lamborghini and be trying to make his way back up through the order. In actual fact, the V10 screaming away. How much power has it got compared to this Mustang? Of course, it was very quick in a straight line over at Massano, and in the slipstream, looking like it's pretty handy once again. Just a tenth of a second separating him, and Morant behind. Another fastest lap of the race then for Castorino. Kevin late on the brakes, super aggressive down the inside in towards the bus stop chicane. Job done before they even get to the apex, and that is the Lamborghini up into 28th position. But having lost 11 places so far in this race, he'll be wanting to continue that charge from short, cheered on by his fellow teammates. And of course Pranav in the chat as well, immediately trying to look down the inside towards Lascelles. Couldn't quite go for that much of a late lunge, but you needn't worry, I'm sure there'll be opportunities on the horizon for him in just a moment. Nicholas Huben, I think, has just made his way on by Samir Foch as well in the Bentley. Could be on the move in just a moment again, although in actual fact, first track race we need to have a look at is the likes of got Carpenter and Frey up ahead. I don't think Carpenter's going to get the job done there. What about Barrier versus Olivier? The Aston Martin manages to hold off for the time being. What about Huben? Down the inside, these Bentleys quick on the back straight, gets the job done past Ramonnet, and then Kevin Tadai late on the brakes once more, up on the inside towards Lacon, past Dubila, and now sets off in sight and in charge of those up ahead. Up in 27th position then for the Vitral Esports car. My goodness, then drama in the opening couple of laps, but getting a second up the road for the Nissan GTR. And then we go confirmation then. So it was Stuben Rauch. I thought I saw a black Aston Martin having an unfortunate moment, and I do believe that was the case. And yeah, that for the number 25 car then, a mass crash and a drive-through penalty for the man that took his maiden victory in the Pro Series here last season. So frustrating stuff from the German driver. He'll be annoyed at himself, but mistakes do happen. It does unfortunately happen from time to time. A lot of no further action taken from the stewards as well on plenty of other incidents. And support then for the GTR storming off up ahead. Meanwhile, Frey and Carpenter this time around. Carpenter does look like he has made his way past the Porsche. Not that much to fight with. Frey, though, will he be aggressive on the brakes in towards the bus stop? The answer is no. He will try to find an opportunity to fight back elsewhere if he can. But my goodness, though, look at the pace from Castorino. 2:16 on the dot. Bear in mind, his pole lap was only 0.6 of a second faster than that. And yes, absolutely. For those that are unfamiliar to the World GT3 racing and the beauty that is Spa-Francorchamps, unfortunately, whilst it is a lovely track, it is an absolute menace if you do get any sort of penalty relating to the pit lane around here, because a drive-through penalty here is ridiculously long, because the pit lane exit is about there. So you can tell that with the entry being over at the bus stop chicane, it's quite the trek down that portion. And for those that do end up having the misfortune of suffering a stop-and-go 30-second time penalty, it feels like an absolute eternity, although not an eternity, before we have another instance on the track for two Frenchmen coming together in towards Les Combes. Valentin Barrier not taking a position in the end, and immediately under pressure from Aidan Walsingham, who's trying to go around the outside. Now got very close on the braking zone, bumping in the order. Yellow flag out as well. Further down the order is Ramonet that's gone around now, so something has kicked off there. All of the Frenchmen on this lap having an absolute mare and coming together. But what a fight this is inside of the top 15. There's Schneckenberger, Gessel, Tanzin Zahaka, all involved in that as well. Excuse me, actually, just Schneckenberger and Gessel on the tail end of this train. Other battles, though, taking place imminently behind. Also escalating the scrap here inside of the top 5. Gaskell versus Whitehead versus Menard. Of course, a lot of drivers will be benefiting from Stu Ranch's penalty when he does serve that drive-through, so there'll be a lot of cars that gain a position in this race. You see, look, Whitehead he looks like he's got good pace in this middle sector, but right now just unable to make his way on by. And also, I did see it earlier, and I did want to make reference to it, but we had too much taking place on track to comment on at a time. It wasn't even Nightbot this time around, it was the Auto Mod that struck down, for curious reasons. Oh dear, I think there's been a little bit of a moment. There has been a moment for Valentin Barrier down towards the bus stop chicane. It's still kicking off with Aidan Walsingham, who's now trying to go at the inside of Leon Burns. There's a bit of door banging through La Source. Awkward exit for the 296. We'll have to resume our conversation about the Twitch chat in just a moment, because the action is continuing on. Leon Burns is not going to be too happy about that, but I don't think has any choice but to follow in the tyre tracks of the Aston Martins. They make their way through Eau Rouge, but with the slipstream in tow, has a good opportunity to get past once again. Keep a little bit of an eye on that digital mirror, though, in the centre of our dashboard, because he's got company behind in the hands of Schneckenberger and Gessel as well, who's very late on the brakes, sends it from downtown. I think spooks Leon Burns entirely, who then has to cut the chicane. Walsingham goes back on through, Schneckenberger goes back on through, Gessel trying to hold on for dear life. Leon Burns back down the inside in towards this long right-hander, and he's going to be returning the favour. It's all kicking off here in the mid-pack. Gessel is out of position as well, with Barrier trying to recover his way up the order of after that moment at the bus stop chicane. But it's Leon Burns that comes out on top of this. Now look at that! Absolute chaos and carnage here. Brenham's out wide on the exit of Giacchi's corner. Giardia trying to look up the inside in towards Bulwan. Sends it from afar. Gets the job done just about. A little bit of contact on the front corner of the Honda, and manages to get the job done. Absolutely, definitely some various forms of bullying and hard racing up and down the order. There's absolute drama, chaos and action here at Spa-Francorchamps in the Pro Series. But this is why we love seeing these guys go toe-to-toe every single week. This is what it delivers every single week. And if you are enjoying the racing action, we're already 15 minutes into this race. We've got plenty more this evening and plenty more to come over the course of the next 7 races in the Pro Series. So do consider following the channel if you haven't already. Sean now under pressure in this absolutely titanic scrap with Proel now on the charge in the 296. The Ferraris running very low wing around here, able to get a run. That Porsche of Gessel could also be in trouble. There's contact on the entry. You can see that one going from a mile off, and that's Sharda into the concrete. He's around. And the Ferrari of Vincent Proel goes on through, losing positions on the exit. I think he might be trying to wait for Sharda. I'm not too sure. And we'll see how it plays out. But that was an unfortunately poor manoeuvred part. They got Huber now trying to get stuck involved in this. I'm not sure Proel is actually trying to concede these positions anymore. Close at the pointy end of the grid as well. Castorino, whilst he has escaped up the road by 1.5 seconds. Buffy and Del Fanta only separated by 0.3 of the fight for the podium, very much on Proel. Definitely not backing out of any fights there through Eau Rouge. They will look to go. Maybe Brenham on the charge in that BMW. Huben as well, as he tries to recover his way up the order, seeing what he can do. I don't think that BMW is quick enough. Unusually that Ferrari pretty handy on the straights as it stands. But drama here in the Pro Series. White flag for Huben. I don't think anything too dramatic there, thankfully, as Ramone has now come into pit lane as well, I think, to repair whatever damage he suffered in that incident at Les Combes, or potentially to retire from this race. The fight for P4 continuing to heat up, because it is Gaskell, Whitehead, Menard and Van der Velde all very close to one another. Pace right now of your race leader, 3/4 tenths clear on lap by lap of the rest of the field. Very impressive stuff in that Nissan GTR. Once again, any other instance, we've got a warning for the number 25 car for Justin Surenrouch. Rather falls into I think the drive-through penalty has probably done quite enough to his race, but warning understandably nonetheless for contact on the second lap of the race. That was with Philip Menard. A 10-second time penalty for the number 14 car as well. That belongs to Peter Duvela further down the order. So despite those valiantly fought fights, that is certainly going to have a hefty compromise on his race. You see Philip Menard with the better straight line speed in that Aston Martin, getting racy behind Luke Whitehead, who is simultaneously stuck and being protected from losing positions at the same time here. He can't make his way past the Mustang of the Gaskell, but at the same time that slipstream is allowing him to just stay far enough away from those other two behind that are putting him under immense amounts of pressure at the moment. Nicholas Huben has made his way past the BMW of Oystein Brenham in that West Competition racing car. Will head back towards this fight inside of the top four though. It's Gaskell with Whitehead in tow. You can see though with that delta, 3/10 at the start of the straight, goes down to 2, so he is gaining a little bit, but he's not gaining anywhere near as much. Menard, half second, there's a big send. Oh, I don't think he meant to go for that quite so soon. He hasn't whatsoever. Has to skip the chicane. Quick reactions from Luke Whitehead, and Tinko van der Velde, the champion and last week's race winner, manages to capitalise immediately, snatches the opportunity, says thank you very much, and takes the freebie, and that gets up to P6 himself. But lightning fast reactions there from Luke Whitehead, who had to open up steering. Miscalculation in the slipstream from Philip Menard, but thankfully no one coming to blows in that one in the end, but that could have been a disaster and a half. Yes, so quickly follow off of that other point before we end up having something else happen on the track. The Autobot, the Nightbot, all of them, they really do try their best. They are trying to do good things for this community and monitor you beloved lot, but it does sometimes have a few moments and is a little bit on the sensitive side. So word of warning to those that are new here at the LFM channel. First of all, big warm welcome, but second of all, do stay away from capital letters, otherwise Nightbot will strike you down menacingly for showing happiness, excitement, or any other form of positive emotion, but he's just misguided. He tries his best. Meanwhile, Huben has made up another position, has got past Vincent Proel in the Ferrari 296, who could be under pressure once more from the BMW in the number 23 car, but that Ferrari too quick in a straight line. I don't think there's going to be an opportunity there for the West Competition racing car to make his way on by. Also, big warm welcome to all of you in the chat. So many of you here for this evening. and I hope you are enjoying the crazy action here at Spa-Francorchamps we've got going on. We've had some fantastic and legendary races every single week for the last few rounds, and we are being treated to a dramatic one once again. So if you haven't already, do consider giving the channel a follow. We are here every single week with the Pro Series, delivering the goods and going for some fantastic prizes, with the likes of Castorino and Boothby heading up your championship campaign, but with the likes of Eric Delfange, of course, a driver that sat in the top 3 positions of the Pro Series in the past. And the number 7 car once again showing exactly why he is able to keep himself at the pointy end of the order every single season in a car that's so tricky to drive. Warscombe now trying to go side by side with Leon Burns, going wide through the exit of Lecom, in through Malmedy, and the Ferrari just about manages to hold on to the position in the end, and now under pressure immediately. Schneckenberger trying to go all the way around the outside into the hot seat. Tansvinzer Hacker comes to watch on, see if I can find him a gap and opportunity. The Aston Martin holds off the Bentley, sent towards the outside. Jackie is gone, you can see the margins so close. Oh, a little bit of contact as well. Glued on the exit there, thankfully no harm done in the end, as that is also Valentin Barry getting stuck in and involved. Eric Gessel, who's already had a couple of moments in this race, trying to see what he can do. Aiden Walsingham exploring the neighbouring postcodes. It's the in the hillsides of Belgium, but manages to hold the position in the end. But these guys absolutely giving it everything on the track. We always love to see it, but it does sometimes. It's a very fine line between incredible hard racing to then suddenly the sort of what we saw earlier on at the beginning of the race was a Marco Schada's instant towards bus stop chicane being sent into the wall, as a pit window has now open. We haven't even had a chance to talk about the strategy side of things. It looks like pure dry racing today, so no drama on that front like we had last week at Donington Park in typical British grey sky fashion, but that doesn't mean to say that the strategic element of this race is any less interesting, because of course there is that central 20-minute pit window when these drivers must make their one mandatory stop, and that's not gone very well at all. Nicholas Huben, I don't think he got it stopped on the first part of the bus stop chicane, then on a very awkward line into the second apex. Jardier trying to take more or less the racing line, and a little bit of a slap across the face of the Bentley, the Honda, and the Bentley will have a bit of a drag race towards the end of the Kemmel Straight on this next run. We'll see what he can do. That car has been good in a straight line. The Honda is no slouch though, but a little bit of an awkward moment between those cars. Have to see how that plays with the field. We've got more penalties on the way. That's not particularly a surprise. We'll come back to that though in just a minute, as Huben tries to see what he can do. Hot pursuit down the inside of Jardier, not defended from the Honda. They will go side by side though, and there's another bit of a biff there. Shoulder barging his way on through. Jardier drops 1 position, maybe even drops 2, as he's now under pressure from the next 2 cars behind, almost 3 wide into the next right-hander. Surely that can't end up working. It doesn't end up working. Brenham shoehorns the Ferrari of Proel out the way. Martin Lawrence says thank you very much, makes his way on by in the process. Jardier just about holds onto that one, and Huben escapes up the field. My goodness, these guys are certainly putting on an incredible amount of scraps, and this is what's always so fantastic to see, no matter where you are in the pack. There's the beauty of the LFM platform, the rating system, and how it places you in each of these tiers that you have. It's just fantastic races every single place you look in these leaderboards, every single tier, every single corner, you name it. Luke Whitehead got a good run here. He's got a very good run, in actual fact, in the Mercedes. It's going to be awkward, though, how it's time through here out of Blanchimont. Oh, he actually saw the back end let go of that Mercedes, losing the downforce. How late on the brakes is he? The line was just closed off before the braking zone. Very smart defending from Sam Gaskell there. Not compromising his own line too much. Big run out of the final corner from Luke Whitehead. Both of them struggling to get the power down. Whitehead got a big kick of oversteer. I would have thought he would have sent it down the inside then, considering the late braking manoeuvres that he can pull off. Seeing what he can do there. But in the end, decides to tug back into the slipstream, which is not short. But with this Mustang power, you can see how much of a problem it's been for Delfanta sitting in P3. That margin consistently at 0.3 of a second. Castorino still pulling away up the front. The margin per lap, not quite as significant as it was before, but still managing to gap the likes of Boothby and Del Fanta. And thinking back to strategy, if you are the likes of Luke Whitehead or Del Fanta, where you're feeling boxed in, trapped behind another car, certainly do have to think about the undercut. Now, Del Fanta actually has pretty more opportunities and options. I think we'll see Castorino very likely go around the halfway mark. He'll go for a simple strategy, make sure he protects himself from too much of an undercut, keep himself in good stead for the second half of the race. I don't think anything too dramatic on that side of things. George Boothby could try to go for an undercut. Is he likely to make up a 2-second gap to Castorino with that? I don't think so. And considering the amount of pressure he is under from Del Fanta right now, he probably doesn't want to go for something that could leave him in too bad a position later on in the race. Del Fanta can either look to go for the undercut or the overcut, very close to the car in front, so if he pits before George Boothby, fresh tyres on the car, that could definitely work. Overcut also could work, because even if the other cars behind do box, it's going to take him a while to catch up that gap. Of course, Gaskell right now sitting 3.5 seconds behind, so Del Fanta has options. Luke Whitehead, from his perspective, Tinko van der Velde as well, they can look to maybe think about the undercut. They've got to be cautious about the overcut strategy, because they've got cars in much close proximity to behind. So it's always that toss-up and weighing up scenarios. What thing is, you know, the risk versus reward? How's it going to play out? Tinko van der Velde actually had a menacing run out of Bonchemont there. Almost thought he was going to try to sneak up on the inside. There we go then. Tinko van der Velde, last week's race winner, is the first one to blink. So 5 minutes into the pit window, he comes then, as does Timo Karppinen. We've seen some aggressive strategies from the Boatley driver in the past as well. They have sometimes worked out very nicely. Let's have to see what he can do. Yellow flag for Thomas Morant. Not sure if that was for pit exit or if he's had a moment at the beginning of the lap. We'll have to wait and see. That's Del Fanta very close through Eau Rouge on the gearbox of that Mustang once again, but just unable to do anything about the car in front. Also, a big thank you for the kind words in the chat. They are very much noticed and appreciated, and I hope you guys are enjoying the crazy action here at Spa as much as I am, seeing these guys wield some wonderful machines around here and putting on a brilliant show at the highest of levels. To give an update on penalty situations, although as Aidan Walsiger making his way by Leon Burton's going a bit deep now in towards lane comms, unable to recover the position through that fight in the end. We have a 10-second time penalty for the number 28 car. That was for Kevin today. But I think he may have already retired from this race, if I'm not mistaken. He's been in the pits for approximately 10 minutes, so I would have to assume that is his race over and done with. Marco Schada has come in for his stop as well. And that is actually it in terms of everything else. We've had a lot of other no further action, but nothing else to particularly write home about as it stands. So, just over 33 minutes left on the clock then. Castorino leads by 2.5 seconds. Has not really extended that margin all too much over the course of the last 5 or 6 laps, but certainly has got himself with some wiggle room, a good and comfortable spot as it stands for your championship leader, who is chasing, trying to get his second victory of the season, and would be our first repeat winner over the course of a season that we have had in ridiculously 16 races. So we'll have to see what he can deliver. Del Fanta on the charge once again, very close to Boothby. Oh, I thought he was heading towards pit lane then, but he decided against it. Meanwhile, Hooban continuing his resurgence up through the order. Philip Menard and Sam Gaskell have both come into pit lane now as well. And this is very impressive from Hooban when you consider that he was backwards near the back of the grid on the opening part of the race. Tanviza Hacker has come into the pits inside that little trio of squabbling GT3 cars. But Hooban then up towards the top 15. Of course, we've had some cars that have already boxed, so it's not his current position on the leaderboard isn't quite representative. Whereabouts Tinko van der Velde emerged. He's got a lot of clean air to work with, so the first car at the pointy end in the field to come into the pits then, he'll be trying to see what he can dial into that McLaren, get some good pace underneath him, and try to move his way up through the order as a result. Meanwhile, Castorino, Boothby, Del Fanta all staying out. Like I say, I would expect to see Castorino just go for a stop halfway through the race, make life easy and simple for him. Boothby having to continue to sustain being put under so much pressure from Del Fanta. It does certainly feel like he is being somewhat held up by the Mustang at the moment. Maybe it's tuned through its front tyres especially a bit too hard. Also, it's not exactly the most graceful of cars on its rears either, so it could have well started to tear its way through those, but it makes up for that with a great deal of horsepower underneath the bonnet in the front end of that car. Vanting Barrier applying some pressure onto the back of Schneckenberger. We're thinking the Mustang's suffering for similar sorts of reasons then. You can see, still got some of these cars wheels down, but still in the pit lane as it stands. And that's Tinko van der Velde coming through La Source then with a big tank slapper. We'll see where the likes of Gaskell emerge in all of this then. So he's just coming up through Eau Rouge now. There is Tinko van der Velde. I think van der Velde might get him here because he is going to have a mighty run up through Eau Rouge. There's the Mustang emerging, and the overspeed of this McLaren is going to be absolutely incomprehensible to that Mustang. It's got a lot of speed in a straight line, but there is nothing he can do about that from Tinko van der Velde. So last week's race winner plays a strategy perfectly and manages to get the position as a result. Tanvis the Hacker is going to emerge a little bit into no man's land. And meanwhile, inside the sources, apparently, as you wonderful people keeping an eye, doing little bits of spying for me, the Luke Whitehead already has 3 track warnings. What that means is he really cannot afford to make another mistake and go wide, otherwise he will end up with a stop-go 30-second penalty, which at Spa is basically the equivalent of just immediate retirement. Of a race of this length, there's just nothing you can do to bounce back from that, simply put. So we'll see where Luke ends up in all of that. As we hit the halfway mark of the race, we'll see if anyone else decides to come into the pits on this lap. Eric Del Fanta came into the pit center. He's trying to go for that undercut strategy relative to George Boothby. How will that play out for him? We'll have to wait and see. Jack Olivier applying the pressure to the back of Michael Frey as well. We'll see what he can do through the right-hander of Malmedy. Frey a little bit wild with the back end of that car, although not quite as badly as it was at Donington Park. I mean, that thing really did look like it was an absolute ice rink last time out on British soil. Timo Karppinen has a good run on Philip Menahi. Possible opportunity if he carries momentum on Dan. You can see no twitch on steering. A lot of cars suffering through there. We saw it with Luke Whitehead earlier on. Late on the brakes was Menard, but he's gone a bit too deep. There's nothing that Karppinen can do on that occasion then. Eric Del Fanta still in pit lane, and none of those at the front decided to come in on this time around. He is now wheels down and on his way. Vanting Barrier has come in as well. So it's a question then of where does Tinko van der Velde emerge relative to the likes of Eric Del Fanta? And the answer is Del Fanta is going to be pretty easily up the road by the looks of it. You can see that number 6 car is going to be charging up behind him, makes his way into camera shot now. Then we go the purple McLaren screaming its way on down, but from Del Fanta's perspective, like I say, he had that flexibility to not really worry all too much in the grand scheme of things. Someone that could be worried is Philip Menard, who's got that pressure now of Timo Karppinen, trying to make his way around the outside of the number 9 car, trying to go for the over and under the switchback, almost coming off, but wise defending from the Aston Martin driver, no opportunity given on that occasion. Martin Lawrence trying to go for a move all the way around the outside in towards bus stop chicane, and Charlier won't allow that fight to play out. He decides to bail into the pits as the rest of your drivers, other than Lawrence and Leon Burnt, all come into pit lanes. So Castorino and the likes of George Boothby coming into the pits as well. So keep an eye then on the likes of Eric Del Fanta. How good is this outlap going to be? We know how close it was between him and George Boothby at the time which he boxed. We saw Tinko van der Velde making the undercut work just a couple of laps ago. There's now Del Fanta trying to use that fresh rubber to his advantage, get the temperature, get the pressures up in those tyres. Not always easy. There's a lot of long corners here at Spa, which is both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, they'll be up temperature sooner. On the other hand, they are easier than to lose time once you're on those fresh tyres. But very much all the game of averages. Number 7 can't make his way then in towards the bus stop chicane. Let's see, are the likes of Castorino and Boothby wheels down just yet. Not quite. Boothby at the very end of the pit lane. Jardier comes into the pits. Here is Delphanta then making his way into La Source now. So expect to see the likes of Castorino on the move. He is on the move. What about George Boothby? When does he go on by? There is Delphanta just on the minimap. You can see coming out of La Source in towards Eau Rouge now. I think Castorino is safe here, but George Boothby, I believe, is in trouble. We'll watch it from the other point of view. This time around, here comes Boothby out of pit lane. Watch for that rear view mirror, because it's going to be a Honda storming his way up behind him in just a second, closing the gap all the time on the way. Is there enough of an overspeed? There we go, finally pops in the shot, carries momentum. Can he do anything? He can't. And there's even with a speeding penalty for Delphanta. The undercut, the hopes for a podium position shattered immediately. And that stop-go 30-second penalty is going to be race ending there for the Italian driver. And look, I have enough PC struggles as is. Don't don't be mean. Unfortunately the Honda, even with that speeding penalty, it probably wasn't by too much, but even with all that, not quite able to make the undercut work in the way that Tinko van der Velde did. So frustrating stuff there from the Italian. But George Boothby then, that allows him to just get his head down, commit all eyes forward, but does still have to be careful about Tinko, as he is not too far away, just within a couple of seconds, springing a step from last week as well in this McLaren. And in the end part of the stint, he was looking mighty quick as the Mustang's tyres started to drop off. So there could still very much be a fight for P2 in this race once that McLaren starts to get into a groove. Nicholas Huben then up towards what is, for now, P15 on track. Could chop and change once again as Leon Burnt and Martin Lawrence emerging from the pit lane very shortly. Marco Schada and Vincent Proel having a bit of a fight. Fabrizio Campanella as well. Of course, he was around at the beginning of this race as well on the exit of Malmedy. We had all of that chaos at the very start. Also, no further action on everything else as far as I can tell, so nothing else to report from the stewards side. Of course, once again, big thank you to the stewards for putting in such hard work and effort then to monitor these guys and their racing. Meanwhile, Campanella sending it down the inside, maybe not quite getting it stopped in time. Samir Foch, usually pretty kind, maybe more so than he should be sometimes, to those going for the dives. To Campanella with that rather audacious dive does get the job done. Meanwhile, Schada sending one down the inside as well. There's Eric Delphanta serving his stop-go 30-second penalty, but he's even got to head into pit lane. And there's a yellow flag for Leon Burnt coming out of pit lane, so he was one of the last to pit. Well, he's lost out to Jack Olivier. Will he lose out to Aidan Walsingham as well? He's trying to come up the inside just by the time they get to the braking zone. I think with that, if he gets it stopped in time, which he does, the Walsingham manages to make his way on through in the end with all of that. See then, further down the order, Samir Foch had a good run on Campanella, but in the end decided not to go for anything on the Lamborghini driver, who looks like he might be having a little bit of connection issues, looking a bit floaty for being compared to some of the cars, but hopefully nothing too bad from their sides. 23 minutes of racing goodness left to go then. Interesting, of course, of those stops. George Boothby, I think the gap has actually come down a little bit at the front. 3.3 seconds now between himself and Castorino, but immediately even on the outlap, Castorino 0.2 of a second quicker. And Tinko van der Velde applying the pressure in the McLaren behind. But in the meantime, we turn our attention towards Valentine in the number 16 Aston Martin, seeing what he can do, seeing what he can deliver in this car. We know he's got good straight line speed, good opportunities to go for an overtake, but that Bentley is also pretty handy and is very likely going to be able to hold on to that position, especially with the straight line speed, the slipstream of the Mustang in front. But the straight line speed of that Mustang may make it a bit on the tricky side to make his way past. It's been a good recovery drive so far from Huben. He'll be frustrated to have been involved in that early incident in the race. Often when you have a race like that and you make a comeback through the field, it is a very good feeling, but at the same time also one where you're often wondering what could have been. Huben puts his foot to the floor in the number 4 Remwelton Esports car. See what he can do up the hill. They will look to go. The tail end of this car always a little bit on the loose side. You can see not exactly on-off style steering, very jittery, micro corrections all the time, but doing a good job of dealing with that through Eau Rouge, of course, dealing with the bumps and the compression through that section as well. And then very tricky crest of Radion. Very early upshift for Huben there in towards 3rd gear to try to get the benefit of that traction. Very nearly contact between the Bentley and the BMW of Lawrence and Tanvinzer-Hack, and you can see the scrap between Proel and Campanella in the background. We'll try to capture everything if we can. Side by side, there you go, you can see just about the pair of them in towards the right-hander, Schade and Lawrence then. And I think the Bentley might be the one to go on top of that one, although inside line held on for the time being in towards Jackie Hicks' corner. Oh, sorry, Brenham has had to concede the position, but meanwhile contact on the exit there, and that is Lawrence sent around. Thankfully, everybody, quick reaction, manages to make their way on by. Oh, and that's super awkward timing for Lawrence. He's going to have to wait for a whole nother pack of cars to go by once more before he can get going again. But side by side through no-name corner, it's not easy to make it through there without instant. Unfortunately, contact there leading to the Bentley driver going around. We'll have to see what the stewards have to say about that one. But it's a tricky one to judge. I didn't quite see if it was a case of him coming down over the top of Shanda's car or not. It was difficult trying to look at 2 different battles at the same time. Meanwhile, Castorino sets the fastest lap of the race. Opportunity here for Nicholas Huben as well down the inside in the Bentley. Does he get it? Stopped just about on the line, tight as you like. And Huben in the number 4 car makes his way on by and up into P12. He's only 2.5 seconds away from top 10 in the race, which, considering for 60 minutes of racing and being backwards on the opening lap, I don't think it's too shabby. Schade, seemingly an incident towards the bus stop chicane. Don't think he's backed out of his pace exactly, otherwise we would have expected Campanella to go on by. But certainly close between those two. Meanwhile, at the pointy end of the grid, Castorino 15.9, the only driver to be in the 15s as it stands at the moment. George Boothby keeping him honest though, 0.52 versus a 0.977 of Castorino, so not too much of a difference there. Gap still about 3.5 seconds. Tico van der Velde dropping away somewhat on the last lap. That gap opened up to 3 seconds. Also the likes of Whitehead, Carpenter and Gaskell, those gaps they spent a very long time being just a few tenths of a second. Those have opened up as well to around second half. So I have to see how that plays out for those guys. George Boothby as well, he had a bit of a slow stop actually. He lost 1.3 seconds to Castorino. Now we have heard Castorino mentioned before about one of the other benefits of that GTR outside of its tremendous torque, overall rather pleasant handling characteristics. Also, whilst it's not technically for performance, I like to think it's worth a good 1/10 of a second, that the gear shift noises are very nice. I think it's always good motivation of the driver if your car sounds good whilst you're driving it. By comparison, I think for example, like the BMW M4 isn't exactly the most inspiring pieces of machinery to drive around in. But other than that, the other benefit that Castorino has mentioned previously, and all these incredible little insights that we get from drivers at such a high level of competition, often when they come into the interview room, is about how even in pit lane, it manages to just have stops that are a little bit quicker and just gain some valuable tenths here and there, and that can be the difference. That can completely be the difference between holding on to a race victory and losing it. Meanwhile then, Schade still under pressure from Campanella, who sent one down the inside, and there is contact a little bit deep on the brakes there, showing exactly the same level of respect back on the exit, and Schade holds on to the position for the time being. Then we'll see what Campanella does on his next charge of attack. Looks like he is the faster car of the two, which you would somewhat expect considering recent performances and where they qualified. But Schade certainly right now making it hard for the Lamborghini driver to go on by. Olivier and Frey also very close together. Very wide moment. Oh, that was a very spooky moment for Marco Schade. Meanwhile, we've also got Vanzi Barrier and Steckenberger side by side. It's the outside into the inside, back towards the outside for Vanzi Barrier, and he gets the job done over the German driver of Schneckenberger, number 30 car, in the end having to concede that position and falls back to P14. Campanella not able to repeat the same feat then through Lecom. 0.3 of a second is the margin. The Honda, though, is pretty handy in a straight line, not likely to be the easiest car to overtake, especially whilst it is a lovely sounding car, that V10 powered Lamborghini, not always really the most competitive in the grand scheme of things in terms of straight line speed. So have to see if there's anything that he can do on that front. Take another turn towards Olivier versus Michael Frey, because I've got a feeling that this fight is likely one to have some fireworks in the immediate future, because Frey certainly gets himself stuck into some hard-fought squabbles. Olivier joining us this evening, looking quick, looking speedy, and looking like he's got a good opportunity here for a top 10 finish. Trying to go very, very late on the brakes then around the outside of Michael Frey, who's also late on the brake, late as he can be. So much so that he closes the door of the apex, and Walsingham might be about to take 2 for the price of 1. Oh, Olivier not having any of it on the exit. Now they're 3 wide. Oh my goodness. Well, we'll go on board with Leon Byrne then, who is in the hot seat for a great cinematic piece of what could be carnage. Frey goes way too deep in the braking zone. That's Leon Byrne trying to go for an over and under. That ends up compromising the line of 8 of Walsingham. Jack Olivier now finds himself into all B8, almost squeezed into the wall. Was at Leon Byrne then, and you can just about see on that very tiny digital mirror the rather, oh my goodness, big moment for Byrne! Big moment for Byrne through Aruja Radion. It's completely let go on him. He just about manages to keep it off the racing line on the exit. But there we go. We were waiting for it to potentially happen, but Spa from Gashab! Oh my days! That was almost Eric Gessel straight into the rear end of the 296. Thankfully, I think took avoiding action at the very last moment, but that is a hefty, hefty impact for Leon Byrne. Meanwhile, resuming with this fight, it's still ongoing. Huber trying to go all the way around the outside. He senses a fantastic opportunity to not just break in towards the top 10 here, but to make his way into some very solid points. Leon Byrne continuing to tumble his way down the order, but how quickly it can all spiral here at Spa-Francorchamps. There's also some other penalties that have come about. A 15-second time penalty for number 24 car. That is for Marco Schade for causing an incident on lap 17 with Martin Lawrence. So that was, I think, the incident at Jackie Ick's corner. So they have deemed it to be the responsibility of Schade behind. Tough day for him around here. And then a warning for the number 31 car for avoidable contact. That was Josef Kuifel. So I'm sure the stewards will be quickly on the review of those other incidents, see how these play out. Also keep an eye on those gaps between Whitehead and Gaskell. The Mercedes driver has again reeled him in. Meanwhile, speaking of which, trying to go all the way around the outside now is Aidan Walsingham. It's a brave place to look to try and do it. He's going to be so careful of how he positions his car here as well, because Huben is waiting for an opportunity, waiting for an attack, and it's middle of the road defence there for Walsingham. And Michael Frey then, as you can see, Huben in that left rear view mirror, trying to see what he can do. Tanvin the Hacker and Eric Gessel also going side by side through the exit. Bust off chicane, flat 6 torque and acceleration in favour of the Visceral Esports car. He'll have the inside full of sauce then. He might be able to make something stick here. The other trio, still as they were, will keep an eye on the drag race though. Out the hill, they will go over and under for Tanvinza Hacker. Might be able to out-accelerate the Porsche 992, who's set all the way to the exit of the AstroTurf. It's going to have to be brave stuff here, but he's not going to be able to go side by side through Arujan. Will they make it through safely? They do. Leon Byrne suffered obviously big consequences through there the other lap. Nicholas Huben too far back to do anything here. What about Eric Gessel? Does he sense anything? He might sense it, but I think he's too far back. It'd have to be a big dive towards Lecom. But he can't make it stick. You saw how close to the edge of the grass there he was as well. Big overlap over to the left-hand side of the circuit. Jardier then making his way past Sasha Vassner in towards the braking zone. Gets the job done in the Honda and up into 22nd position. Speaking of which, who is our biggest mover so far of the day? Of course, a little bit of a mixed bag. We've also had some cars sent down the order and then have had to make their way back up. We've got Brenham run out 14 positions, Gessel up 13 positions as well. Not sure if we've got anyone sitting inside our top 10 that's had a strong performance. And that's a mistake from Luke Whitehead then, and Timo Karppinen brave around the outside. Well, it's very rare that you see a move being made through that part of the circuit, but Mr. Carpet delivers in a spot that no one would have expected. And now Visceral Esports line up 4 and 5. I have to see, will Carpenter look to make his way past his teammate, or will it be a continued scrap between the pair of them? We've seen some pretty hard-fought fights between the Visceral Esports guys, but as I said, that battle was getting interesting. I wonder, a mistake, a side-by-side moment perhaps, leaving Luke Whitehead vulnerable, and then that straight-line speed. That's the problem. You can have all the cornering speed in the world, but if you can't make use of it, you can sometimes be ever so vulnerable on the straight sections or the flat-out sections of the circuit. Nicholas Huben looking to try to apply some pressure to Aidan Walsingham. Stays just behind him for the time being. Tries to set up a good exit though, and I think he might have one. All calm and comfortable at the front of the pack. Less so in the fight for P5. Confident still under pressure then from the Mercedes of Luke Whitehead, who's thinking about a sniff up the inside, but he's too far back to do anything on this occasion, so he will have to hang fire for the time being. Meanwhile, Huben, can he look to do anything? And Walsingham trying to place his car as smartly as he can into the braking zone. Super late around the outside. The Bentley driver looks to go. Can he make it stick? He might well be able to. Walsingham sent wide through the second part of the chicane. Huben up into P10. And for a car that was backwards in the early stages of this race, top 10 finish, I don't think it's half bad going for Huben there. And who knows, at the end of his championship fight, there's still 7 more races to go, and anything could happen over the course of this season. We've seen crazier things take place, and he knows how to keep himself in the mix to the end. It's all about consistency. Speaking of Mr. Consistency, he hasn't had too much airtime this evening so far, with less than 10 minutes of the race left to go, but that is because it has been so far the perfectly conducted race. Dug deep in qualifying, delivered a brilliant time that no one was able to match. Withheld the charge from George Boothby early on, and then stayed composed every single lap since then. Now leads the race by 4.5 seconds, and is lapping half second quicker than nearly any other car on the circuit right now. Timo Karppinen might look for a move here on his teammate. He is going to look for a move here, trying to go all the way around the outside. Can he make it stick? Cut off on the exit. Luke Whitehead now trying to go on the charge. Can he get the power down? You saw how much the back end was squirming, and these two side by side on the exit of the bus stop chicane. Sam Gaskell surely on the run up towards A Rouge. He gives the slipstream to his teammate. Oh, there's a little bit of door-to-door back in there, and Luke Whitehead, I'm not sure he'll be too happy about that one. Does he slot behind Carpenter on the run up the hill? He does indeed. But the question is, can he get enough momentum to make his way by the big bad Bowley? It punches an awfully large hole in the air to allow that Mercedes to creep up and close the gap further. Carpenter not with the strongest of toes on his teammate anymore, and Luke Whitehead, one of the latest of the late breakers, looks one way, looks the other. Or was trying to, I think, force a bit more of a significant defence there out of Carpenter, but Whitehead on those shoulders keeps it all together, keeps it secure, and keeps it Visceral Esports 4th and 5th for the time being. Much to a 2-time Pro Series champion frustration. Valentin Barrier applying pressure to the back end of Aidan Walsingham as well. Just behind Oystein Brenham was having a think about what he could do with Eric Gessel. Meanwhile, the other Porsche in the field, that is Josef Koifel, trying to go all the way around the outside of Samir Forsh, who sent it to a spin with mid-corner contact, and that's frustrating. And Samir, wow, that was a quick retirement. he had retired from the race before I could even click on him, and he was barely in the wall. So that is unfortunately Samir's race done and dusted with unfortunate stuff there. Just a smidge of contact coming to blows. Meanwhile, is a dive down the inside from Brenham onto Eric Gessel then, side by side, and that is now 15 positions gained for Oystein Brenham. Still 12 for Eric Gessel in the Porsche, which is extremely impressive, but this BMW has been on the move and now finds its way into towards very nearly the top half of the field. Just 28 drivers joined at the start of this race. 3 of them have, well, excuse me, I think we've had some extra disconnects as well, so I think we had, no, we had about 31? I want to say 31. So we've lost about 6. As is typical of Spa. Meanwhile, using that straight line speed to his advantage. Another car disposed of for Nicholas Huber, makes his way on by Michael Frey, and now looks to set off and charge up to the back of Jack Olivier, and he is on the move. A 2:16.357. That was the fastest lap of anybody last lap around. So Huber, he may have been spun around at the beginning of this race, but he is on a charge. And he must be thinking, what if he could have remained inside that pointier end of the pack? What could he have done from that position? Because even with being sent around early on, as Marco Schade has come into the pits as well, I hope that's not for a drive-through for corner cuts. Otherwise, that is going to be an increasingly bleak day for the Honda driver. As meanwhile, Carpenter starts to forget somewhat about the pressure of Luke Whitehead and just sets off in charge of his teammate. On board with the Boatley. 5 minutes left on the clock. Typically around most circuits, that'll give you about 4 laps of racing. This one is going to be barely 3. Meanwhile, that's a very late braking manoeuvre from the Porsche driver of Eric Gessel. Banging doors again on the exit. I have a feeling Gessel may try having a look up the inside here as well, but in the end hasn't quite got the momentum to go on by. And Vincent Proel joining the party is waiting to see how close he is through those slow speed corners. In the middle sector, the Porsche is rapid, braking, agility, acceleration, all strengths of that car, as well as sounding like an absolute demon screeching away behind the driver. But that BMW as choosing gears then was Gessel. I think he bounced between 3rd and 4th there for a very brief moment. Interesting stuff through there. Maybe trying to just get a little bit of rotation in the car, get some slip angle going, and then maintain that throughout the rest of the corner. Carpenter now with a good run, trying to apply the pressure to his teammates. That Mustang very, very hard to pass, and I'm sure he'll be giving just a little bit of extra caution as well, as he is his teammate. But limited opportunities left to go. That's fact, only 2 laps left of this race, so not much to work with. If Carpenter does want to make his way up towards P4, be pretty happy gaining 9 positions so far today, but we'd love to get that number in towards double digits. Here's a Koifel as well as getting 14 places, as well as there's a scrap further down the order. Hard racing between Eric Gessel and Vincent Proel has allowed Oystein Brenham to escape up the order. The Ferrari driver squeezed to the outside line on the exit of the chicane. In the end, has to stay behind the Porsche driver for the time being. How's Carpenter versus teammate? Fair, the Mustang holds on strong. Meanwhile, this is a big opportunity now for the Bentley driver of Nicholas Huber. And I think that Olivier has actually even lifted out of that one. He has indeed. And that is Huber up into P8 of this race then, for what could be some crucial points by the end of this 12-round campaign. Also just behind in camera shot, you can see Van Teen applying the pressure to Aidan Walsingham. Also, that's Vincent Proel trying to go all the way around the outside of Eric Gessel. A bit of door-to-door banging then, side by side through Les Combes. They remain side by side through Malmedy. Oh my goodness, trying to squeeze his way back onto the circuit. Cuts across the front of Eric Gessel. They just about keep out of each, well, they don't keep out of each other's ways, but they keep each other out of the wall by some miracle. Martin Lawrence and Peter Duvila also scrapping away further down the order and almost repeating exactly the same fight. But the Bentley Talk of Power manages to get the job done, although Thomas Morant in this Mustang joining the party, saying hello and looking to try to see if he can get stuck into this one as well. final lap of the race will commence very, very shortly, with Castorino just making his way in towards the final part of the lap. Meanwhile, Karppinen, big run this time for him on board the rear wing of Sam Gaskell. There's the confirmation for fastest lap of the race. And also, look at that, Luke Whitehead, who will be ever so racy, trying to make his way on by. Glued up behind Karppinen, but they are just inseparable as it stands at the moment. The Mustang, enough power to offset himself from the Bentley fray. Went for a bit of a dive there, I think, and I don't think it paid off. Olivier went back on through. As then the final drag race for these guys fighting for 4th position gets underway. Top 3 comfortably apart from one another as it stands by 5 or 6 seconds. But Gaskell has had to withstand a lot of pressure over the course of this race. Needs to survive 2 more runs. This will be the first one, and Karppinen shows his nose, but he's not close enough to realistically do anything there through into Lacombe. They will look to go. Meanwhile, also keep an eye on this one as has a warning lights from Campanella. Not quite sure ultimately what that's meant to indicate, really. Apart from the overall dangers of Spa-Francorchamps. Meanwhile, number 21 car, locked into the slipstream, is gaining all the time. Campanella, though, is also being protected a little bit from the top ahead. Does Gessel look to do anything here? The answer is no. Heard him lift very early before the braking zone. So nothing that he is trying to do there in terms of late braking. Karppinen, Gaskell, Whitehead still inseparable. These 3, as this is where Whitehead is so quick. It's this middle sector, but he just can't find a way through, and that opportunity to go for P4 surely lost after what looked like it may have been a costly mistake when trying to make the pass on to Sam Gaskell. They'll get one more crack at it. Meanwhile, though, whilst other cars have flailed around this incredible track, so dangerous, so hazardous, and so unforgiving, there is a man that has absolutely dominated from the very start of the race. He made his statement intentions clear in qualifying, and he saw it all the way to the flag. Amedeo Castorino, for the 2nd time this season, is a race winner, and George Boothby, Tinko van der Velde will round out your podium positions, but the fight for P4 and 5 is still on. Whitehead all the way around the outside, shoulder bars, it's going to be a drag race to the line. We'll have to see maybe in the stewards room, but on track anyway, Whitehead will get the job done around the outside towards the finish. Fantastic racing between those guys. Vantin Barrow can't do anything about his queue of cars up ahead. What about Campanella versus Proel? Very close. Through Blanchimont they go. Proel, will he defend the inside? Not enough, because here comes Campanella storming his way down the inside. Too much. Eric Gessel on the tail end of this fight as well. He might take the pair of them this way. Where is the Porsche? And I don't think he's close enough. Oh, he was nearly there. He was nearly there indeed. They'll finish as they were, but what a fight towards the end there. Koifel and Jardier close on circuit as well, as they will cross the line. I think your biggest mover of the day will be Oystein Brenham. 15 positions gained to get to P15. But with the last few cars separated somewhat, that is the end of your race here, and your race winner of Amedeo Castorino. Well, we had a fantastic streak of not having repeat winners for a while, but eventually, with someone of the likes and talents and caliber of Amedeo, of course, it was bound to happen eventually, and he has managed to deliver fantastic performances time after time. Hasn't finished outside of the top 2 so far this season. 5 rounds in, stellar performance, and he is looking to continue that charge towards what would be a 2nd championship to his name in the world of the Case King Pro Series. It is a rather elite club amongst drivers. There's only Luke Whitehead and Marco Bischoff that have done it before. And George Boothby and Amedeo coming into this season, both looking like your strongest contenders to try to repeat the feat and for the first time be repeat championship winners themselves in this series. But right now, Amedeo and that Nissan GTR has looked like he's had the upper hand over the course of the season so far. And what a brilliant performance from him once again this evening. We will look to talk to our drivers in just a moment and see how they are feeling after what has been a crazy evening of action here around Spa, as everyone very patiently waiting over in the Discord server. Well, I can also see another driver in there who I recognise the name of, but I do not believe was in the server for the evening. But we will look to bring in those that I am very much aware of. And there we go. We do have our full podium lineup already in there, ready and waiting. These guys are beautifully efficient. But, of course, I have visited the podium a number of times in the ATC and LFM Pro Series career. But first, man, we will bring in Tinko van der Velde, returning to the podium once again. And whilst it may not have been repeat victories after that stellar drive at Donington Park last week, still a great ride through the field for you this evening, and a P3 to add to your championship campaign. A tricky, busy, and carnage-based race today at Spa. What was that like from your POV?
Hello, good evening. Yeah, that incident into Vekoma was crazy. It was right ahead of me, so I just had to cut and rejoin as safely as possible. And luckily, it worked out for me and actually gained position from that. And then just drove my race, went for an undercut, and seemed to work out.
Absolutely, but it was an interesting one, wasn't it? Because the undercut, we saw other drivers trying to go for it as well. Eric Delfanta tried to do that to George Boothby, but was unsuccessful. And unfortunately, that was even with a speeding in the pits as well, because he had a
Yeah.
stop go 30-second penalty. So, it highlighted even that with that, the undercut wasn't a foolproof method in order to actually, gain those positions. But, you managed to make it stick very, very nicely. Do you think there was anything different, either in terms of how you were driving, how the car was set up, or how maybe the McLaren could get its tyres fired up for why it worked for you and maybe not other cars?
Um, well, it was using 2 brake ducts, which I think was a bit too low for the race stint, but for the first few laps, that helps a bit because you get more temps in the tires. So yeah, my pace wasn't great in the second stint. I'm not sure why compared to first, because it was way worse. But obviously, I did the undercut, but I didn't expect it to be so bad. And also, I think Casco probably made a tiny mistake in the pit, because he should have stayed ahead.
It was, yeah, I did look at some of the pit times. The only one I actually noticed that was particularly slow was actually George, out of
No.
interest, which was a bit on the peculiar side. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's super fine margins here in the Pro Series, so yeah, it's those subtle details and even great little insights like that with the brake ducts once again about how it's an advantage, disadvantage, because on the one hand, maybe the long stint pace would have been better, but if you hadn't been able to make that undercut work, we saw how difficult it was for cars to progress past the Mustangs and stuff like that, so it could have been the difference maker in that sense as well. So brilliant insights on that front. A great drive, of course, from you this evening. Heading to an equally formidable location, if not more so, next week for the halfway point in the season. We'll be going to the Nordschleife for 90 minutes of action there. Certainly, I think one of the scariest and most dangerous tracks. So we're keeping the theme going of undulation and spooky circuits. Any thoughts or feelings as to how you might be looking to get on there? How the McLaren might deal with that circuit course? Because so much bottoming out, bumps. It's a tricky one to sometimes get that dialed into that car.
Yeah, obviously, it's a legendary track, and I really enjoyed myself as well. It's great to drive, a lot of fun to old lap, and also produces great racing, so looking forward to it. Only done like 2 races in ACC there, so it's gonna be a lot of new experience coming in, and I think that's for a lot of drivers as well. And I think for the McLaren, I never drove it there, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm quite hopeful. I think the Bob could be quite good for me compared to tracks like Spa. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Sounds like a plan, Tinko. Fantastic. Thank you so much for popping in for another interview, and congratulations on making your way onto the podium once again for the second time in 2 weeks. And look forward to seeing how you get on at the Nordschleife for next week then.
Yeah, thanks, Jon.
Take care, Tinko.
See ya.
Happy man there, of course, indeed. Also, for some reason, I think my Discord notification sounds might be coming through this evening. I have no idea why. In the grand scheme of things, I have a feeling that my streamer mode for some reason has randomly disabled itself, and I don't know how to turn it back on. But in the hang on a minute, wait a second, I'm a genius. There we go. We'll go on from from there. But we will look to bring in our next driver on the podium. Then George Boothby, who managed to make his way to second place on the podium after what was a very interesting opening lap. A charge towards Lacob, applying the pressure to Amadeo, but the GTR just a little bit too far away, and then settling into the groove, holding back Del Fanta in the first stint, and then maybe a bit of a calmer second phase of the race, but still an amazing race nonetheless. George must be happy to secure again some very solid points for the championship.
Yeah, it was a surprisingly good race, to be honest. Because I don't know. I always seem to struggle here for some reason. It's one of those tracks that so many people put so many laps around, and so it's always really close. And I knew that like the bop lap here for this car is really good, and there was a few little under the radars, but not by much. You know, this is really just a lot of it is just down to the drive, and it really is. And I don't know. I always struggle around here just to nail that lap in quali, but I don't know. Today, just woke up, did practice, everything felt great, and in quali I did a lap, and I feel like there was a little bit more in it, but it was enough for P2, so I was super happy to get that, and but I'll just try my best in the race because Castorino it was on fire. He's really got that Nissan working nice, and I just couldn't. I tried my hardest, but he was just too quick today, so. Happy with P2, like you say, good points.
Yeah, without doubt, of course, consistency is pivotal for the championship campaigns as well. Of course, both yourself and Amadeo looking to try to maybe contend for a second crown being added to your respective tallies. So they are crucial results as we make our way over the course of the season. And also just talk us through a little bit of that first thing, because obviously you had a lot of pressure from Del Fanta behind that you had to keep a cool head, stay calm, and keep on top of that Mustang straight line speed, just slightly insurmountable for the Honda. But how difficult is it when you've got someone that's clearly, on top of their game, really pushing hard through that middle sector especially, and just keeping it calm, keeping it together, and not making a mistake, allowing the Italian driver to make his way past you?
Yeah, it can be really difficult. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of car, who it is. If someone's right behind you and you can't shake them, like, you can say you're not nervous, but everyone gets nervous, especially when there's stuff on the line. And if you're fighting for a championship, if there's money on the line, it's just it all adds up. And yeah, no matter what, no one likes one right on their butt. So so I was well aware that he was there, but it's sort of about how you manage it. And I noticed he only could really overtake into the first hairpin. So as long as I was very late on the brakes there was no way he could go for a move. There was one or two times he got very close, but I think he was a bit smart as well because he wanted to break away from the guys behind. So, there's a lot that goes into these races. Some people want to absolutely send it everywhere, and you've always got to be wary of them. Other people play it smart and, hold off for the best spots. And but yeah, he played it really smart. Unfortunately, though, that stop go 30 in the pits ruined his race. So
yeah, I thought rather quickly to bring it to an end, which was a bit of a shame.
It's very costly around here. But I think I would have had it under control still. I sort of learned his weaknesses, like you say, and where he was quick, his car was slow. And I think as long as I just kept covered off turn one, I was okay. So but who knows? Maybe I would have made a silly mistake and would have flew past me. I don't know. But it was a hard race, that one, to keep the car working because the rear tires died at the end of every stint. So it would have been maybe a little bit interesting at the end. But still happy. And yeah, we made no mistakes. And that's another thing as well. That stop go 30. He's probably thinking maybe I can get the undercut. Got to send it into the pits. And even when it's not it might not be a mistake on the track. It's a mistake in the pit lane. Either way, it can cost you your race. So it's very stressful, very difficult.
Yeah, of course, as always, super fine margins here in the Pro Series, and I think it's something that for those that are new to sim racing and new to this kind of level of competition, a detail that they often overlook of actually how critically important even just things like the pit entry can be, how committed you are to that, and then how costly those errors can be, and Spa obviously being one of the most punishing in that regard. So yeah, fantastic insights, and yeah, a very well controlled and delivered race from your side. Casting minds over to next week for the 6th round of the season. A pretty titanic task on the horizon there. 90 minutes of the Nordschleife for the 6th round of the season. Any thoughts or feelings as to how the car might be there? Because, of course, it's a dangerous and precarious track, somewhat like Spa, and can have its pitfalls. But it's, when it comes together, it's a beautiful one. So I think it's very much a Marmite type of circuit almost for drivers going into a race like that.
I love the Nordschleife, so I can't wait. It should be a really good race. And I've tried this car once or twice there, not like seriously. It's got a few spots where it sort of explodes on curbs for some reason. You think it'd be great over the curbs, this car, but when it bottoms out, and there's just like one or two spots. So I'll have to like do some setup magic, I guess, to make that work. But apart from that, I feel like I'll have good pace there. So really looking forward to it. I haven't had like I don't think I've really done a proper sprint race there in like a championship. So yeah, excited to see how it goes.
Fantastic. Sounds like a plan, George. I'm sure that you'll be giving your all and put on a stellar show as always. So congratulations on another podium to your ever-growing tally and some important and well-deserved points from today's race. And look forward to seeing how you get on next week for the 6th round of the championship.
Thank you very much. All right, take care, man. Thank you.
Take care, George.
Bye-bye.
Fantastic stuff, and a happy man indeed with some well-deserved points on the board. But our first repeat winner in 16 races, of course, in terms of being within the same season, Amedeo Casarino delivering an absolutely perfect performance, got the job done in qualifying, a stellar lap around such a tricky circuit, and then, of course, across the race, controlled the opening lap, head down, brilliant pace, job done after 60 minutes of lovely driving. Amedeo, you must be delighted with that performance tonight. I'm afraid you are muted in case you didn't know.
Thank you. I see you are quite a professional streamer, so you know it.
I also have learned from George because it happened about 3 times last season as well.
Yeah. That's good. Thank you. Anyway, I was going to say that, yeah, of course, I'm pretty happy about the result today. I managed good quali this time. Yeah, lost a couple of tenths from my best lap, but around 1/10 from my best lap. And I think maybe the server was a bit slower, the official server, also because nobody made a very, very strong lap. So probably that's why. Probably the wind play a thing there. And yeah, for the race start, I was a bit careful because I know that the Nissan is more powerful than the Ford at the start. But then George was able to take my slipstream, so I had to defend the position. But I prefer like to squeeze a bit him on the inside for have the outside and brake later. And luckily it worked also because I mean he was pretty fair by not do a crazy dive bomb as always. So as always, I mean that is pretty fair as always. Not that usually it's not, of course. And yeah, after like the thing was trying to break the slipstream, because with the slipstream George was able to keep my pace, and once like I broke the slipstream, the dirty air, yeah, I was able to pull away, especially in the middle of the stint. He was struggling probably a bit more than me with used tires. So then I was trying to manage, but I was always pushing also, because if you manage too much, like you kind of lose your reference. So like I always like to push basically all the race, and it's not quite easy also with the Nissan because it's a bit sketchy here in the fast corners. So I was always like, I was never completely relaxed, because especially on pond you need to be very sensitive with your steering wheel and your inputs, because it's very easy to lose the car here.
Yeah, we saw other drivers like Leon Burns had a huge moment through Eau Rouge and ended up in the wall there as well. So yeah, Spa, an extremely unforgiving circuit in terms of that side of things. And also, another aspect, it kind of came about in different forms. We saw Eric Del Fanta misjudge his pit entry, got a stop-go 30-second penalty, which was effectively game over in terms of his race. We also saw other drivers, struggling to try to, keep the car in track limits. I think everybody in the end actually, maybe bar one, managed to survive tonight's race without getting a drive-through for corner cuts, but there were a couple of drivers who were on the edge. How was that from your side of things? Was it all under control on that front, or was that, slight, diciness in the car and liveliness that the Nissan tends to provide you around this type of circuit? Did it make it tricky to keep it between the white lines?
No, that was a bit easier. I was more scared, as I said, about like losing the control of the car. Was more easy here. And yeah, because especially if you manage in the first 10 minutes to don't take track limits, then you find a bit more confidence and pace. And also with used tires, it's more easy that you take no time gained by the game, because you are a bit slower. So the important is always managing the first 2-3 laps. Especially I made it on the second stint. On the first stint, I was pushing a lot in the first laps for trying to break the slipstream. In the second stint, I was everything a bit more easier because I had a 3-second gap. So first laps was quite easy on the tires, easy on the track limits for managing and push more later.
Absolutely, yeah. A beautifully executed and controlled race from your side, Amadeo. And of course, I'm sure you'll be smiling for a long time this evening with that brilliant performance. And of course, some ever crucial points added to your tally, not outside of the top 2 so far this season. Amazing consistency, as always, from your championship campaigns. And then, I do want to cast your mind before we wrap up this evening over to next week for the Nordschleife. 90 minutes worth of racing around there. A very tricky challenge, a hazardous circuit, a scary circuit to say the least, as well. Any thoughts or feelings in terms of how that one may play out for you and your car?
Maybe it could be my first drop round here because it's a beautiful track to drive, but I'm not quite on pace usually, especially in dry condition. On mixed or wet condition, I'm good at Nordschleife, but on dry condition, I'm struggling a bit. We'll see with the Nissan because I never drove the Nissan, but I know I saw some hot lap and the car is doing some funny wheelies on the fast corner, so I'm not quite confident. Also here, like sometime I was doing a small wheelie on a Rouge with this car, so we'll see. I hope on wet condition, to be fair, I think it will be better for me and also for the Nissan wet condition. We'll see. For sure, we are happy about today, but unfortunately for me, also George is quite consistent because I win the race, but he was P2, so I extend a bit the gap, but he's always quite there. So yeah, will be I think tough for all this season.
Yeah, been an interesting round, and also, I mean, George is going into that race as well with maybe not the greatest of confidence. He loves it as a track, but is uncertain of where he may find himself with that. So I'm sure that we'll be in for a lot of drama and chaos as always whenever we go racing there. Amadeo, thank you so much for popping in for an interview, and a big congratulations on another win to add to your tally, and of course, fantastic points for your season. And look forward to seeing how you get on next week.
Yeah, thank you. See you hopefully next week, but we will see. Good night, guys.
Fantastic. Cheers,
Bye-bye.
Amadeo. Take care. Great stuff then, talking to, of course, a understandably happy chappy inside that Nissan GTR. A brilliantly driven race from Amadeo this evening to add a second race win to what's already been a mighty season that he has put together. Hasn't finished outside of the top 2. And it's that level of consistency that wins you championships. That is exactly it. I mean, even this is a more dominant display of consistency so far than what he did in his championship winning season. His championship winning season, he had just low, I think a 10 race podium streak, something like that, or 10 podiums across the season. Immense performance, but not actually too many race wins or P2s, often hovering around P3, stuff like that. So, so far, it's been a stellar campaign from him. So absolutely fantastic. And Kylo, as always, our resident statistician. 2 victories so far this season, 5 podiums, 3 pole positions at that as well. So he is putting together a brilliant campaign. And whilst the streak of non-repeat race winners across the season has come to an end, I think it's come to a very well-deserved end with a driver like that from Amadeo. So great stuff from him this evening. We'll look to run through the results from this evening after a crazy 60 minutes worth of racing here at Spa, with Amadeo Castorino, George Boothby and Tingo van der Velde making up your podium, with Gaskell, Whitehead, Carpenter, Menard, Huben, Olivier, Frey, Walsinger, Barrier, Schneckenberger, Tansvinzer, Hacker and Brenham seeing your way to the end top 15, of course, with Oystein Brenham being your biggest mover and winner of our little trophy of the Johnny 8 trophy to progress through the field like so. Proel, Campanella, Gessel, Jardier, Koifel, Vassner, Lawrence, Duvela, Morant. The end of those that stayed on the lead lap. Sharda a lap down with Foch, Burnt, Delfanta, and I didn't quite catch the other names on the list. We'll go back to those in a minute. Steven Rauch, Ramaday, and Iemelo. Unfortunately, DNS from today, of course. Those some of those early on, the likes of Iemelo involved in that very first lap incident. Carnage took place down at Lacon, which completely transpired how the race would then play out from there, in terms of, there was a lot of cars that gained in that scenario. Someone else that was a big loser was Nicholas Huber. What a comeback from him in the end, only losing 3 positions from where he started. He was backwards on lap 1. So it's, I think also, I think Iemelo unfortunately has significantly more damage than the likes of Huben did, but it does go to show that sometimes if you do get your head back down, it's surprising what you can do to reclaim good results. It was Delfanta, of course, and then Reinders and Tadai that were also your other DNS from this evening. So going to show how tricky of a circuit Spa is and how much it puts these drivers to the test to deliver around such an incredible location. But they, as always, put on a fantastic show for us. After then an incredible evening of action, that is it then for the 5th round of the season. We'll be heading to the Nordschleife as we go into the halfway point of season 16. 90 minutes worth of action there, which is going to be crazy. The extra 30 minutes adds so much more joy, and also, of course, mixed conditions on the horizon. The Nordschleife being a tricky and titanic circuit as well. It is always one that puts on an amazing show. We've had some stellar races there. There was the last time we visited there at the end of, I want to say, season 14, that we had some crazy racing as well and drama in the final lap. So definitely do not miss it. It is going to be a cracker. But thank you already so much for all the amazing support this evening, and those of you that have followed and subscribed as well. If you haven't already, did enjoy the action, you want to see what these guys get stuck into next week, then do consider giving a follow on the channel here. You can stay in tune with all the action that the Case King Pro Series has to offer and see all of the wonderful racing that these guys do each and every week, putting on some stellar drives for us to enjoy. Of course, if you also want to subscribe and show some extra little bit of love and support to those here at the LFM team and the hidden heroes that make it all possible, then you can very much do so here over on the Twitch channel. It's all very much appreciated. Big thank you to those that have done so. It does make such a big difference. And of course, if you want to be a part of what is now a 200,000 plus community and just want to stay in touch with all of the action, you can head over to the Discord server as well and meet some friends, be welcomed in with open arms, and talk all good things, sim racing, real racing, share pictures of dogs and cats, you name it, and it will be a lovely time over there. And if maybe just the wonderful community aspects and the watching aspects aren't quite enough for you, and you fancy seeing what it is like getting stuck behind the wheel yourself, then never fear, you can also head over to the lowfuelmotorsport.com website, work your way up through the ranks, get yourself a license, and you can compete in championships like the Pro Series and get some fantastic prizes in those series. You can also take part in the daily racing, the endurance racing, there's GT4s, there's all sorts of goodness to get stuck into. And of course, if ACC isn't quite your cup of tea, you can also explore loads of different series, sports cars, single-seaters, MX-5s, you name it, over on AC1. And of course, keep a close eye on the website for the soon arrival of AMS2 on the way to the LFM platform. Very exciting things for all of that, and a great way to, of course, celebrate how this community continues to expand, diversify, grow, and just share what is this wonderful little happy niche that we all have, and get together on the racetrack and share some wonderful times. So, with all of that said and done, Spa delivering the goods, Amadeo Castorino delivering another possibly championship cementing drive. Long way to go in this season. Of course, 7 races left as we approach the halfway point in the season, but these are important times, and he is delivering fantastically and showing no signs of stopping his incredible form. So do look to join us next week when we head for 90 minutes of action at the Nordschleife for the 6th round of the season, as it is going to be a cracker. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching, as always. But until next time, then, it's goodbye.